Now let's go back to our top story tonight and the news from the Ukraine President Petro Poroshenko that in fact troops are surrendering around the war-battled town of Debaltseve. Our Europe correspondent Barbara Miller joins us from London. Barbara, good to talk to you tonight. There were so many conflicting reports about whether or not they had surrendered really this town, but it seems from what Petro Poroshenko is saying that they certainly have withdrawn.
That's right. Petro Poroshenko is saying that 80% of the troops who were in Debaltseve have now withdrawn. Now, he's calling it an orderly and organised withdrawal. I think this looks more that the rebels have in fact taken the town and that the Ukrainian troops have had to get out. The rebels have been pushing ahead to take control of that town for some weeks now. It's a key transport link and seen as very important for both sides to hold on to it. So the Ukrainian withdrawal from Debaltseve, I think, is less an adherence to the ceasefire deal signed in Minsk as a recognition that the troops have to withdraw, otherwise they're going to be completely overrun by the rebels. Now, some of those troops are reported to have surrendered, and the Russian President, actually Vladimir Putin, calling on Ukraine to respect that and to say that any of troops who surrender should be handed back to their families, the implication being that they could face punishment for surrendering. But certainly some have surrendered and a large number now withdrawing.
Now, Debaltseve, the pro-Russian separatists are also saying we should never have been part of any ceasefire arrangement. Now, would that be the case, or is that difficult to assess at this point?
They say that was never spelled out in the ceasefire deal in Minsk. Now, this deal was reached after all-night talks, 16 hours of talks, and Debaltseve wasn't specifically mentioned in that. This has been a difficult subject for both sides. So what the EU, what the US, what the Ukrainian authorities are now saying is that the Russians never really respected this ceasefire at all. They pushed ahead with this offensive, backing the rebels, they say, in Debaltseve. That was a town the rebels wanted to take. It looks now that they have taken it. So where is the ceasefire?
Yes, indeed. And what we are hearing is that both the French, German, Ukrainian and Russian leaders will now have a phone call hookup later on this evening. It would seem that this very shaky ceasefire is almost over before it begins.
That's right. I mean, hopes were always slim that this ceasefire was really going to bring peace. Even those who brokered it, Germany and France, were hosing down expectations that we really would see the end of the conflict in Ukraine. What the German leader is saying through her spokesman is that it's not dead in the water yet. This is a serious violation, she says, what's happened in Debaltseve. But we can't give up on this Minsk agreement yet. So I think the leaders are pretty much thinking if they can keep talking, then there's some hope of some reduction in hostilities. It's not all-out war yet. But in the face of it, another telephone call between Germany, France, Russia and Ukraine doesn't seem like it's going to solve anything here. And Russia actually sponsored a resolution at the United Nations for all parties to back the Minsk deal. There was some fiery exchanges there with the US ambassador to the United Nations saying, you know, it was a bit rich of Russia to be sponsoring this deal when in the eyes of the US, it's Russia who's violating it. But talks are ongoing, and as long as people are still talking to each other, then I think this push, this diplomatic push to try and at least reduce the hostilities will continue.
Barbara Miller, thanks for the update.